Number 6, and this number 6 is an album by Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie. A little history. McVie rejoined Fleetwood Mac in 2013 after a 16-year absence, and this was prompted to let us believe that the classic Rumours Quintet would get back in the studio. However, they were readying to record, first recording since 1987s, and then Nix, however, decided to jump ship and continue with her solo work. So a rethink was necessary, and the four others decided to go ahead, and Buckingham and Nick McVie took the reins and decided to put the album out as a Buckingham McVie project, basically avoiding any conflict with Nix if they decided to call it Fleetwood Mac. So we got 4/5 of Fleetwood Mac on this album, and I found it pretty good stuff. It certainly brings out all the best parts of Fleetwood Mac, although it's certainly clear to say that Nix is missing, and at times we'd have loved to have heard her vocals, but the end result remains quite positive, and with more time this band and this album continues to get more and more pleasurable to listen to. And I'm going to go through a few of the tracks now. It's rock, blues, pop, of course. Track 2 is Feel About You. It's framed by a marimba and John McVie's bass line, very Caribbean flavour-like, offset by a doo-wop-ish lyric. The line behind Christine McVie's breezy vocals. Next up is In My World. This is Buckingham's song, delivers classic sort of Fleetwood Mac. Breathy call and response vocals. It floats above your ears, and Nix isn't missed at all here. The keyboards are awesome. Red Sun's next, the glorious sun-kissed pop of McVie again, gorgeously crafted. It contains a stacked vocal hook that makes us forget about Nix again. Moving on, Too Far Gone. Here McVie's vocals punch out this classic pop rock funky riff with percussion that hints at tusk, a bit tribal-like in its feel. A tight guitar solo by Lindsey makes this an instant Mac lookalike. And then I'm going to shoot forward to Carnival Began, the closer, very dreamy with a knockout solo from Buckingham. It's not Rumours, but it's still very impressive, fronted by two creative talents who are veterans of putting together songs of quality. And to back that up, they have a rhythm section of Fleetwood and McVie, who are the best in the business. So don't miss this one. It's Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie, and it's up to number 6 in my countdown. Compiling this top 10, I had two late additions who weren't in that top 10 when I constructed it about a year ago. But I had to put these two in because I really am very impressed. So the first one is an album called To the Bone, and it's basically the life. It's basically put together by Stephen Wilson, a name that is now very familiar to music fans. He's a production expert, but he also has been in his own band, Porcupine Tree, and now he's doing solo work. It's he tends to target a particular genre and brings it up to date. And this record is no exception. Here he's looking at progressive rock, particularly pop rock, and it's very much a hat tip to the hugely ambitious progressive pop records of his youth. So we hear Peter Gabriel's style, Tears for Fears, Kate Bush, and also especially a little bit of David Bowie. Most song-orientated record in his solo catalogue, but he does feature Israeli singer Nida Tayeb, who nearly steals the show on several tracks. Repeated listening will get you wanting to play the album more and more. It's a class act. And now I'm going to have a little look at some of the tracks. And let's just get the notes up. Yeah, it opens with the title track. It's got a very Pink Floyd-esque guitars, and certainly I could hear time on this intro. Tayyeb's vocals and David Kilminster also enhance the tune's hook and add operatic support to Wilson's lead vocals. The sound's fresh, great production. Then on to track 3, which is called Pariah. Here again, Nina Tayyeb alternates lead vocals with Wilson. The harmonics with lilting synths and restrained guitars are impressive, and the loops create a backdrop for the lead vocal. It reminds me of the interplay of Gabriel and Bush on Don't Give Up, and is just as distinctive. Powerful outro, full of progressive beauty, and let's move on to the next one, the same asylum as before. If you like dreamy guitar work with above strings and fulsome yes-style vocals in the harmonies, this one's for you. And then I move on to Refuge, which is 6.5 minutes, a very sultry melody with a thrilling string section and thundering tom-toms. Squalling harmonica and power chords create an anthemic feel. It's really very impressive, this album, and I'm trying to praise it a little bit. But Song of One, or Song of I, which is the penultimate track, delivers piano and strings which intertwine with loops and hand claps. It builds to an inspiring climax, very much a la a movie score like. And then, this is the track before last, Detonation, 9 minutes plus. This weds together progressive rock to adventurous pop, and the guitar is absolutely awesome. In parts, it reminded me a little bit of the heavy King Crimson style rock. Oh, and the closer, quick word, is majestic, and it's called Song of Unborn. So that's my take on this great album, and I don't use that phrase frequently. That great album, To the Bone by Stephen Wilson, and it's crept in now, and it's at I think I've lost count of where we are. It's number 5. Number 4, this album. I first heard about this album by, I think it was the Digital Gramophone who had included it in, I think, his top 100 albums of all time. And I'd never heard of this particular act. Their name is Childish Gambino, which is a moniker for Donald Glover. And the album is called Awaken My Love. Glover was an inventive rapper initially, but by 2015 he'd widened his approach and was singing more modern R&B style, albeit late 60s, and also he dipped into psychedelic soul and early 70s earthy funk. And the album is very much an inspiration. It has fuzz guitars, vintage synths of all kinds, burbling organs, grimy bass lines, and masses of backing vocals adorning the songs. You can hear the influence of Sly Stone and George Clinton. His various groups are strongly represented here. And Glover, well, he doesn't do much rap at all. He really seems more like a gymnast. So we've got funk, soul, contemporary R&B, neo-soul and psychedelia. Impressive list. And I'm going to go through some of the tracks now on this album. And I make no apologies for expanding this. It's called Me and Your Mama, 6 minutes. So very much starts off as a sleepy ballad on the intro and then explodes into a Lenny Kravitz type funk bonanza. Track 3 is Boogie Man. It's very jam-like with a 70s swagger. And then Zombies, the next track, gloomy tales of entertainment business. The intro is very 80s style Prince with odder vocals than his, and very psychedelic. I also heard the Tubes and Faye Waybell in the vocal delivery. Moving on to Redbone, which is an awesome, passionate track via the lead vocals, and Prince again comes to mind. at his best, it has to be said. And there's some great guitar licks on this track. And then we'll get to California. California has a sort of shuffle-like Caribbean flow to this odd bubbly sound. And there's an anticipation almost of a steel band arriving. However, it doesn't. But that's the feeling it gave to me. Baby Boy slides into the Vogue, 6 minutes plus, and has a male Macy Gray texture to the lead vocals. The harmonies are succulent like chocolate ice cream. Love the keyboard sound that flows like liquid gold, and it ends with a smooth groove. And then we have The Night Me and Your Mama Met, a slow guitar riff and chord amalgam with gospel harmonies is what you'll hear here, and it creates that magical feeling, as the title suggests, and stirring guitar solos and riffs that have an earthy funk feeling. And then finally, the melting pot of Stand Tall, a melting pot of hip-hop with jazz tones and psychedelic soul, laden with harmony vocals and synths. Extraordinary original, this track and the album, and it switches to very Stevie Wonder-like anthemic R&B soul on a frequent occasion. Get to listen to it. It's really absolutely gorgeous, and it's by Childish Gambino, and it's called Awaken My Love, and it's number 4 in my countdown. Getting near the summit now. At number 3 is Americana by Ray Davies, British songwriter Ray Davies, who grew up fascinated by American music and the cinema. Of course, he is the leader and the person who formed the band The Kinks in the 60s with his brother Dave, heavily influenced by American musical styles, particularly rhythm and blues early on. They were refused a permit to enter the United States between 65 and 69. This didn't dampen Davis's enthusiasm for the continent and its music, although he did tend to focus more on songwriting about British themes. But once the ban was lifted, he released the country rock tinged Muswell Hillbillies, which certainly had American influences of American culture, even though he was brought up in North London. And tours of North America in the late 70s and early 80s maintained Davis's link to the US. He also briefly lived in New York City, and he then settled into a very promising solo career once we settled down. Americana is a great example of where he's arrived, and it's at number 3 in my countdown. There will be a description for a full review of this album, which I have on my channel in the description. So let's get on to the little bit of a smattering of the tracks. Pricey this. The opening track, Americana, introduces us to jangly rock with soothing harmonies, and there's some neat orchestral country arrangements. The lyric is basically telling us how Ray loves the US, Hollywood romance, dreams, and it's drenched in nostalgia with a lovely 12-string guitar. Track 2, The Deal, is a tongue-in-cheek song about the glitz of Los Angeles, even though you're living anonymously in London. The music's easy pop, get the glamour trick, and the piano tiptoes through the song. It's got a slower tempo than the opener, more anglified, and it's got 60s pop art style features with great feminine harmonies at the outro, and also a bit of spoken comedic word play. I'm going to move on now to track 6. As I say, a full review in the description on the channel. The Mystery Room is track 6. Harmonica smoulders with the guitar blues style and a clapping beat, and then a piano mixes with the rock beat and fills the sound. A great guitar solo back in the mix to boot. Great smouldering rock blues, and it's about his impending mortality. Davies's, that is. Moving on, Rock and Roll Cowboys is a big highlight, track 8. Acoustic folk song, piano joins the plodding rhythm, the music lulls you into sublime contentment, and the guitars mesh nice lead touches with mandolin that grips the rhythm. It's a nod to the lifestyle, and the music is pretty and powerful, a beautiful homage to the American cowboy. And then I'm going to move on again to track 12, A Long Drive Home to Tarzana. This is probably my favourite, and it's a travel song that hits the country notes, soothing harmonies, guitars unifying a Beatlish theme with a soothing melody, and the guitar sound inspires the American dream. It's very atmospheric and it has a beautiful lush sound. The lyric, another romantic travel movie that Ray's gracious vocals adorn, a song to bathe in like hot springs. So there we have it. That's a very, very quick glide through this album, Americana. One final word. Track 13, The Great Highway. Chunky, more up tempo Kink style with extravagant guitar solos towards the outro. Again, great images of being on the road in the States. And he describes the perfection of the ads that you see on the highway. The dreamy people. So that's my take on this album, which is at number 3, Americana, by Ray Davies. Absolutely gorgeous. 2 in my countdown, and listeners to my channel and my ranking videos will know that this guy crops up virtually on every release. No, it's not Van Morrison, it's Paul Weller and his album of 2017, A Kind Revolution. It's rich in warmth and optimism. 2 standout tracks, which we'll come to, but a host of great cuts. Weller has always been challenging to himself to create something new, and this album is no exception. I'm going to get straight into the track list. It opens with Woo See Mama, a thirsty rocker with neat soul harmonies. The quality is how I sum it up. Harmony vocals by P.P. Arnold and Madeline Bell. Pretty impressive, yeah. Track 2 is Nova, with some throbbing bass, which hits the toe-tapping 80s keyboard sound. And then Crash Bang, we wallow in a horn-driven sequence a la Style Council. More electronics and psychedelia with a nod to Bowie. It's 4 minutes of eclectic ideas woven together in a tight ball, and the guitar collides with the horns at the outro. And then track 3 is Long Long Road. This is a ballad, very slow but classy keyboards mixed with string arrangements and hints at Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. It captures an ease to listen to those violins, which add a warmth to the texture of the song. I'm going to move on now to The Cranes Are Back, track 5. Slow, deliberate gospel blues, very much Woking style with techno additions, whirly patterns, nice Bangkok backing vocals, Bangkok, and wah-wah to the outro. And then I'm going to move on again because otherwise we'll be here too long. Hopper has a sea shanty feel to it, with Irish traditional sounds. Great horns create a swagger which is very Dexy's Midnight Runners, or to be quite expansive, a bit of Van Morrison. The Celtic meets Paul Weller, I've written, and there's a bit of a harmonium apparent, I think, played by Paul. Then we go on to New York, which is Style Council Latino jazz combo with faint harmony which envelops the great Hammond organ. It stinks of cast, and then we go funk-like to ensure the listener keeps moving. Great guitar break by Craddock, clipped by keyboards, and then a sparse solo, it has to be said, which is terrific. Now we're going to move on to a track that I absolutely adore. It's called Satellite Kid, and it's track 9. It starts with a bluesy riff on top of a pop feel. There's some jaunty piano, great harmony vocals, bluesy funky beat, and a nice wah-wah guitar solo. And then it speeds up into a jam before a jam before recycling the Moog and keyboards combo. And there's some more strident guitar work as the outro appears. It's absolutely terrific. And the whole album is A Kind Revolution, Paul Weller. It's my number 2 on my countdown. The Tree for 2017. And this is an album called How the West Was Won, and it's by Pete Parrott. Now, if you don't know who Pete Parrott is, you're probably too young to remember the band called The Only Ones, who were around in the late 70s and sort of jumped on the bandwagon of punk. And they were far too good to be called a punk rock band. And they had a series of 3 albums, all of which were 5-star, particularly the debut, which was just called The Only Ones, and their follow-up, Even Servants Shine. Parrott was the front man here, and he's managed to return to the music scene with a polished album of defiant rock and roll, withering put-downs, and he even has an ode to Kardashian family. Rock and roll is back in me, he said. Now, in 2007, The Only Ones reformed. This came as a big shock to us in the music community. Unbelievable, really, after the acrimony of the split at the beginning of the 80s. But their success was typified by their famous single, which didn't sell. It was called Another Girl, Another Planet, and it's one of the great songs of the late 70s. Frontman Parrott then disappeared into a world of addiction and hid away in a house fortified against police raids. Parrott was lucky to survive the onslaught of crack, and this album finds him 5 years sober and with a new album, and his musical faculties are back intact as he delivers a 5-star record. I'm going to go on to some of the tracks now, so you can get a flavour of this. Well, it's almost unbelievable that this album should actually exist, because we all thought that he'd succumbed to the drug infested late 70s, early 80s. Anyway, let's get on. Track 1 is the title track. It's got a Lou Reed hook. Wonderful guitar engulfs a funky rhythm, and the vocals are very much tongue-in-cheek. The riff is a Sweet Jane-like, decorated with ghostly slide guitar. It's effortless and has a languid melody. The voice introduces Parrott's nasal South London drawl. There's 2 types of guitar solos on this track, 50s laid back and 70s up in your face. The lyrics, a brief recount on Wild West history as Parrott sees it, and also using the comparison of a rock star's life. That's been done before, hasn't it? Desperado, the Eagles. But this is a different animal. I'm going to move on to track 5, Living in My Head. Here, the slow, eerie pace with liquid guitar solo fits perfectly with his unique vocals. It's a caviar rock feel, squeezing every vitamin out of it. It's a highlight, and it imagines a drunken haze. And it's a bit of a classic, really, gripping and paranoid. It's, of course, about anguish and love, and it's got a bit of a Doors feel to it. And then I'm going to move on now to track 8, which is Sea Voyager. Beautiful, gentle melody here with nods to the Velvet Underground again. Tons of atmosphere. A purring love song with a guitar solo that hints at country from the West Coast. Parrott sings with deep thanks and a real sense of deep love for his wife, who I gather probably saved his life. The harmony touches the heart. And then Something in My Brain This reflects very much on Perrett's drug addiction. It's got some crisp rhythms with scorching scissors-like guitar, and again the Velvets come to mind with regard to the guitar sounds. And the resplendent last cut is Take Me Home with a shuffled drum beat, and it has hallmarks of a Final Request. There's a bit of U2 style that disappears into the distance, searching for the freedom, and I love the harmonies on the outro. So there we have it. Finally got to the summit with my number one, How the West Was Won, by Pete Perrett. You'll probably struggle to find that one, but I really do think you will really enjoy it and be thankful that you look for it. That's my top 10/12 for 2017.